This is my next video, and it is all about the stages of unhappiness and how overthinking leads to further unhappiness, and how we can maybe take those steps to move ourselves back to happiness. So I'd like to talk to you today about what I call the 3 stages of unhappiness. Now, if I can hold this up for you, what the 3 stages are, and they kind of go up by overthinking about them. Stage 1 is the first stage of unhappiness, and it's actually just lightly concerned, a general kind of light frustration that you might get. Stage 2 comes from overthinking a problem, and generally that is where you get you pass the 50-50 stage and you're kind of half happy, half unhappy because the subject is taking over quite a lot of your time. And stage 3 is when you get to the overwhelmed, panicked, stressful kind of phase. So that is the stage that you're kind of hoping to avoid as much as possible. But what we do is generally we go through these stages. A lot of the time we don't notice if it's a big subject and we've always kind of dealt with it in the same way. We don't notice that we're going through these stages, but we do actually go through these 3 stages. And happiness doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It is actually dedicated thinking and the thought process that goes on in our mind. So let's have a look at these in a bit more detail. We have the very first stage, which I've drawn out for you here. This is stage 1. Now, if I can move this into a place where I can see you too. Stage 1 comes from overthinking, and it's generally where you're lightly concerned. So if you can have a look at the mind at the top here, this point here, your mind is mostly positive. But at stage 1, you do get light frustration coming in there. So you do have a little bit of negativity added to your thoughts, really. And this might be something really, really simple, like, for instance, forgetting to take bags when you go shopping. It can be something as easy and as simple as that. But that is what stage 1 is. Now, if we have a look back at this page here, if you start overthinking a subject, any subject at all, then you get to stage 2 of unhappiness. Now, at stage 1, it's quite easy to actually come out of. You just simply logic your way out of it. So you might say, well, it doesn't really matter about the fact that we've forgotten these bags, it doesn't matter, it's not a big deal, and you kind of just move on. You just logic your way out of it. It's not worth worrying about, is what you kind of say to yourself. And that is where stage 1 really can be just completely forgotten about, and you go back to your daily life. You don't worry about the problem and you just carry on. Then we have stage 2. So if we have a look at this one here, this is where you've gone a little bit more overthinking about the subject, and you start to get a little bit 50-50. So you're negative and you're positive at the same time. Sometimes this subject can drag you away from your happiness, and this is where you're kind of in concern, worry, frustration, but sometimes you're in, sometimes you're out. The best thing really to do with this is, one way is to distract yourself, first of all, and then also logic your way as well. Just kind of talk your way into it. Say, look, I don't need to worry as much about this as I am worrying, and worrying can only do harm. It can't do me any good. So that's where stage 2 is. And generally, the distraction and something like that, you get to stage 2. Say, for instance, you overthought the whole thing about the shops, and you think, do you know what, I haven't got my shopping bag. I'm not gonna have not enough money for this now. I'm going to have to spend it on something else. How am I going to deal with this? You start kind of overthinking it a bit too much. And then you might distract yourself. You might go watch a funny film or something like that and then think, it doesn't really matter. It wasn't a problem anyway in the first place. And then you've used distraction and logic to work your way out of it. Because as you know, and I know, stressing about things never helps at all anyway. It just makes things worse. And we're going to show how it makes things worse, because the next step is when you start to get to the point where you're overwhelmed, you're overthinking the subject, it's taken over your mind, it feels like it's in control of you sometimes. Sometimes it causes you to act without you actually realizing what you're doing, which is an important thing to note, is that the next stage really of this is that you take action based on your panic, your stress, your fear, or your anger. So you may choose fear, which is kind of flight, in the fight or flight situation, and you might just decide to run away from the situation that you're afraid of. Or you might choose anger, so you might choose to get angry about the situation, and maybe violence, maybe you start shouting, maybe you start a fight with someone. This is where your overthinking has taken over, and you now have more negativity in your mind than you have positivity. So this is really where you have to start distracting yourself. You can't focus on the subject. You can't look at the subject. You're kind of a little bit overwhelmed, and if you're not careful, you will act upon your feelings. So these are the stages of unhappiness that I'm talking about. I hope they make sense to you. If you're at stage 3 on any subject, if there's something that is overwhelming you, remember, distraction is the best thing. Music, films, funny things, go and see friends, don't worry about having to think on the subject. Don't think about the subject at all. Try and take it off your mind. Try and just think of something completely different. If you're at stage 2, using distraction and logic, a little mixture, because you're kind of in between the two, so that will help you. And also, if you're at stage 1, just talking to yourself and saying, do I really need to worry about this? Do I really need to concern myself about this? Will concern or worry actually help me? And then maybe kind of just sorting that out on a logical basis, because it's only a small level of frustration at that stage. So I hope that has made some sense to you. In the next video, I will actually give you a little kind of questionnaire tool that I use, and how I use it to kind of take myself away from those stages of unhappiness, because we all have moments and we all have subjects, different areas of life in which we find it more difficult. So if I can give you that, that would be brilliant, and hopefully that'll help you out with bringing you to a happier place. And remember, keep happy.